Hey, thank you for that countdown, Aish. Just in case anyone's wondering, Aish is on 2 days silence to raise awareness of domestic abuse. So she won't be talking, but she may probably put something in the chat. So be aware, guys. Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you, Matt, for joining us from New Zealand, and David, my old friend from Australia. How are you? Excellent.
Thank you for having me back.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, and me.
Thanks for giving us your time. So Matt, let's start with you. In terms of solution-focused brief therapy, when did it first cross your path?
Wow. I was introduced to it in 2016. 2015. I went to a supervision course in New Zealand with Michael Durant, and was part of a big group of over 100 people, coaches and managers and counsellors and social workers and nurses and doctors. It was just a big group doing supervision, and so that's where I first got it. But I think I latched onto it really quickly because I think my counselling training back when I finished in 2009, I was trained in CBT. And I'm wondering, the more I talk about it, the CBT that I was trained in is quite different from a lot of CBT that I hear other counsellors talking about. So I was taught to always ask what was called the golden question, which was, if you woke up tomorrow and everything was great, and as you want it to be, what would you notice about the day? What would you want to be doing that day? Just describe the perfect day, kind of thing. And so I had that in my kit already. And I can remember one of the best counselling sessions I ever had, actually, when I was before I knew solution focused, was a client turned up one time and said, I've actually don't feel like I need counselling today. I've had a really good week. And I said, well, let's do the ABC chart on your good week. What did you notice about your week when you woke up? On that day that was particularly good? What did you notice about that? And what were you doing? And what were your thoughts like? And then what else did you do? And what did the people notice? And I just remember writing this down. I talked to my supervisor that month and said, this was just amazing. I was just really into this. And the supervisor was really impressed with that session of CBT. So when I got into the solution focus stuff, I was like, oh, this really fits. That reminded me of that session that I did in that regard. So the other thing was, so I did that. I've been doing grief and loss work since 2012. And there was a lot of strength-based stuff in that grief and loss work that we were using all the time already, looking for resources, the things that people were coping well, and what's helped them through their grief and loss. When I started, I straight away changed our website. I can remember being in Rotorua and added the question in there, suppose joining this grief and loss program was really helpful, what would you notice? And that just became on the enrollment form. It's called Oceans Grief and Loss, if you Google that sort of thing. So it's a grief and loss program. And that was the best thing ever, because I can remember when it said, there was a question that said, tell us about your loss. And then the next question was, suppose Oceans was helpful, what would you notice? That would be, what do you want to get out of it, or something. It was something like around that. And I would always read that question before I read anything about the problem, because I wanted to know what were they hoping to gain from being part of this program. And then a couple of years later, because I got involved in the solution focused circles, I went to a course by Elliot Connie in New Zealand, and it was a conference, New Zealand conference of the solution focused conference, which Paul Hampton kind of led and sort of administers, I guess, and really interested. The more I heard more about that, and the guidance counsellor from my school where I was teaching at came along with me as well. And we can remember talking all the way, because it's a 2-hour drive from Timaru to Christchurch, all the way back home, saying, oh, we need to put this question on the walls and put these questions around. And these are really good questions that are just, everyone who reads these questions will just love them. And I got to do a presentation to the staff in my school about that. And so it just got me sort of thinking more and more along the lines of with a stance, I suppose, with the solution focused stance. And then I joined the SFU, which is Alec Connie's what do you call it, online training, monthly coaching calls and everything. And I've been a part of that for about 3 years now. So just, very privileged. I feel like I've had the best teachers and the best instruction, and just my journey in recent years, I guess, has been really, really, really helpful. I suppose, so just really doing that. And then last year, 2 years ago, got involved in the SF24 and did a workshop for, that was the 2020, did a workshop for that, and just loved that so much. I said, I should do this for my local community. And so I started doing workshops and just getting involved in that and collecting resources. Yes. So there's a big long thing. That's what got me into it. And I'm passionate about it. And I love sharing it with others.
Yeah. I think we can tell, Matt. I mean, it sounds like when you went to this the conference with Michael Durant, that it just felt like a natural fit, because you was talking about the golden question, and I guess the equivalent of the miracle question. How did they differ? What was different about?
I suppose there's more of the golden question. Yes, I suppose the thing that I'm doing more of now is it's linked to a best hopes. So rather than, suppose you wake up tomorrow and all your problems have gone away, it's suppose you wake up tomorrow and what we've talked about today and what you want to achieve from today becomes a reality. And so it's more focused on, so if someone said, I want more direction in my life, and if you had more direction, what difference would that make? Well, I'd feel happier, I'd feel more confident. Okay, suppose you woke up tomorrow and you were more happy and more confident. What's the very first thing you'd notice? And just going into more detail was probably the thing I got that was different. And it's the real, from the golden question, I suppose there's the philosophy in the back of my head. Let's suppose this really did happen. What would you notice? Rather than what do you hope will happen? What do you imagine? It's sort of, this, if this became a reality, that's probably the difference. Yeah. Question.
David? Oh, he's on mute.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, Matt, because the very first book that I read in solution-focused work was this one by Joel Silent. All right, solution-focused practice in end life and grief counselling. And
yes.
And it makes me wonder. I don't work in grief counselling, but I still can't work out how it works. Like, you're talking to people who are grieving. Joel puts in his book, talking to people with terminal illnesses, people who have had losses. But then you're talking about optimism, hope, miracles.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the pitfalls? And partly two parts. What are the pitfalls or the potential pitfalls? But also, how does it work? How do you get these people that are so consumed by grief?
Yeah. And
yet you're able to instill some sort of hope or positive future or something in them.
Yeah. No. Very good. Very good. So I was invited to be to share at our annual conference, and I decided to do it on grief and loss. And I was only probably a year after I did that course with Michael Durant, and so I went, okay, I'll do it, and it just set me on a path of finding out more how solution focus more so works with grief than what I was already doing. And so I got that book. It was really expensive. I couldn't believe how. And I got the ebook of it, and it was like 105 New Zealand dollars, which is like really expensive. But I bought it, and I read that. And the thing I think that stood out for me over the years now is how solution focus has changed, probably from when he wrote that book as well. Like, I know he's got an illustration in that book, and I used this in my presentation when I first presented on grief and loss, that someone comes to you and you say, suppose you wake up tomorrow and things are better, or a miracle has taken place. And the person said, well, my wife would be alive again. And And his next question was, oh, let's do something more realistic or something like that. And I was like, so now I would be like, whoa, imagine if someone said that to me. It'd be like, let's suppose a more realistic miracle took place or something, whereas now, I mean, I've had clients say, I'd wake up tomorrow if things were better and my wife would be alive, who died 3 years before from cancer. And I can simply ask now, well, what difference would it make? And I can remember this client saying this. I said, what difference would it make if your wife was alive again and lying next to you? And he said, well, I'd want to get out of bed. And I said, and what else? And he said, I'd want to be, I'd have confidence, and I'd be planning for what I'd be doing in the day. So my question then became not, suppose your wife was alive again. My question was then, suppose that confidence returned and you had goals for the day and you wanted to get out of bed. What's the very first thing you'd notice? And then start taking that as the best hope. That difference question, asking the difference question, has been quite a big part of that. So, in answer to what you're saying there, David, how does it work? I just over and over and over see it. I remember another client, one of my, one of these great, I've got lots of great stories, I suppose, was so many. There's the one that I was going to share was this guy who had PTSD. It was diagnosed PTSD. He'd been in a combat situation in 1999 where his best friend was killed and died in his arms in a combat situation. And he was doing Oceans pretty much 20 years later. And I can remember the fear in my bones thinking, oh no, what if I re-traumatize him and I trigger these things and I'll wreck everything that's, there's 20 years of him getting to a point where he can talk about these things again, or he wants to talk about them. And just little things like we asked, suppose, what do you want to get out of tonight? Well, I want to be able to talk to my friends, or I'll have more conversations, was his best hope for that night type thing. So this is in a group situation. And okay, suppose you were able to talk to your friends tomorrow and it's just there was that desire to do it. What would you notice? And he said, oh, I'd probably crack a joke or something like that, just something little like that. And so that's enough, for that conversation. And then we go around the circle and then we do the program as well. And then the next week we came together and I said, so what's been better? And he said, well, actually I phoned a friend this week. I phoned one of my friends. And I was like, wow, into wow. And that's amazing. And what else did you notice in that phone call when you're talking to your friend? Well, actually, I cracked a joke. And it was like, wow. So have you ever called a friend before? And he said, no, I haven't. For 20 years, I've never picked up the phone and called a friend. And I was like, just this simple question of getting them to notice, what would you notice if things were different, if things were better? Yeah, just so many things. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Can I ask a bit more then, Matt?
Please.
I mean, you just gave an example where someone talked about a miracle that was never going to happen.
Yes.
My wife would be back in bed with me. And I remember reading this in Steve Smith's book, who recently published. He gave a very similar story about a man who'd lost his wife. And the nurse had asked him the question, and he said, well, my wife would be alive. Mm-hmm. And that makes me really nervous, to go into a scenario like that.
Yes.
So I always learned that you should try to sculpture the miracle question a little bit more tightly, to say, obviously the person hasn't come to see you to bring his dead wife back. Mm-hmm. He's come for something else. So how important is it to you to try and sculpture the question to say, for example, and the miracle is that you're coping better, or the miracle is that you're not grieving? So is that really important to sculpture that question, or do you just leave it open and say, whatever they come up with the miracle, or that's the miracle, we'll go for that?
Yeah. Well, I think what we're doing is we're asking different questions to refine that miracle, I guess, in that sense. So what difference would it make if that took place? And there's I've got a whole list of practice tasks on my website actually. feel free to download and do this. But one of the practice tasks is to just ask, what difference would it make 10 times? So there's when I do workshops, we ask them to pick a strength card or something that they use in their work that helps them with their work. So maybe they pick perseverance. Okay, so then we ask 10 times, repeating the question. So if you had more of that, if you had more perseverance in tomorrow, that's the best hope, more perseverance, what difference would it make? And they might say, well, I'd be able to get more work done. Okay, so if you're able to get more work done, what difference would that make? I'd be able to help more people. If you're able to help more people, what difference would that make? And then bringing it back to you, because it's not about helping other people. What difference would that make for you? And keep repeating that question. And what I've found doing that as well is it ends up to be one of two things. If you keep doing it to a point that they'll either say, I'll be taking more care of myself, or I'll be living life according to God's purpose, or according to the purpose that I've been created for, or that I believe I'm here on earth for, sort of thing. And it becomes a real honing in on what actually what's the way of saying it? If their best hopes became a reality, what's the outcome they would get if that became a reality? So it's not just about the husband or wife being alive again. It's what will they get if they were alive again, and honing that in. So I suppose when you're honing it in, then you're saying about crafting it. Then I'm thinking you're getting it more refined down. So I'm actually asking the best hopes question, not suppose it was a great day tomorrow, or suppose things were better. I'm really narrowing it down to them being at their best self, I suppose, in that regard, or their real best hopes. I take what you're saying, though. It is quite good to really, but I think what I'm probably learning more and more is to keep what I say, not that I'm doing it now, but what I say shorter. I'm being a hypocrite now, talking too much.
Am I crackling? Is it okay? Okay. Yeah. Just a couple of things from what you were saying. I get what David was saying, and I remember asking David and Emma the same sort of question, because when David was on the ward, there were people that in desperate situations, and I remember you both saying when people feel helpless or hopeless, they're the ones who need hope the most. So I guess in terms of, and it reminds me of, I think Chris Iverson put something up on Facebook the other day when he had to go into a hospital to see a mum whose newborn son only had a couple of hours to live. And he was battling with himself. How can I ask a best hopes question in this situation? It just seems, but he went with it, and she said, I just want to be the best mum I can be for the hours that I've got left. Mm-hmm. So even in those situations where it seems, it does seem really scary to ask that question. We never know what the answer is going to be, I guess, until we ask it. So yeah, that's the kind of when you was talking there, that made me think of that scenario. So Matt,
just going to say one more thing to what David was saying, because it reminded me actually of the thing that I've probably found or become more enthusiastic about over the last couple of years, is that when people can't answer the question, that makes me more excited that I've asked a good question, because when they do come up with an answer, it's going to be really valuable. And I even verbalize that to a client. If they say, I don't know, or if they say that's a really hard question, I say, I'll verbalize and say, that's why I'm asking it. And I believe really strongly that when you come up with something, it'll fit you and it'll be helpful for you. I think so. When you're saying when it's so difficult and scary, I've programmed myself, very CBT, I say, but my thinking has changed, that I like those moments. I get enthusiastic, little hairs go up on my back of my neck, and I go, oh, this is a good moment. This is great. Yeah, so sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just going to ask, because after just going back to that earlier conference when you went back to your team and told them what you'd picked up, how was it? How did the team react? What difference did it make to those guys?
Ooh. It's been a mixture, actually, I'd have to say. I wonder if anyone's watching. So there was a lot of skepticism, actually, because the program, I call it the Oceans program that we have here in Timaru. So if you Google Oceans Timaru, you'll find it. We'll find the background to it. It's South Canterbury owned and written. So, and the adult version of it, I put together back in 2000, probably about 2015. No, it was a little bit after 2016, and so I've been accused of changing the program. So it's not, what it was originally done back in 2012, 2006 actually it was first written, and I took it on in 2012 and brought my education and teaching and rewrote it all up and put it in a proper manual sort of thing. So I've had to print off what it was 2012 so they can compare what it is in 2016 and then what it is in 2018, and so that I've been under scrutiny for that, because the thing is, I suppose the ones who have been most critical possibly of the solution-focused approach are the ones who know the least about solution-focused. So the ones who, when I do the training for new volunteers, that's heavily, it's like a solution-focused 2-day course, and so they're really enthusiastic. They go home and they're trying scaling questions on their children and their husband, and rating our marriage out of 10. And they'll try, what are your best hopes from this conversation? And you're arguing with me now. What are your goals from this argument? And they're trying all these techniques over the week, because how the training goes, it's a week apart. So they come back the second week for the next day of training, and you get all these amazing stories about how they've tried it. So there's an enthusiasm now for the new volunteers. It's the older volunteers that we're doing as much of the solution. Because the thing is, I think what I've brought to the program, and the ones who have embraced that, is just asking at the beginning, what are your best hopes from this time together tonight or today, if it's children or teenagers? What do you hope to gain from this? And I remember kids, so going back to impossible things, one kid said, that I have $1 million. And you can see the other facilitator, because it's always in pairs, going, whoa, what are you going to do with that, Matt? Ha, got ya. And so I said, what difference would it make if you had $1 million? And he said, I'd just be able to buy whatever I want. And if you could buy whatever you wanted, what difference would that make? Well, I'd be happy. Okay, well, let's imagine tomorrow that sort of happiness that comes from having $1 million is there for you. What's the very first thing you'd notice? And that's a really cool example, again, of an impossible scenario, but turned into a possible outcome in terms of what are your best hopes. Yeah, so going back, so has been resistance, but then, to be fair, the new ones coming in just love it, and I've probably got work from that in terms of workplace staff, professional development, and those sorts of things, because people have gone away from this and gone, we need to get Matt in our workplace, and he needs to do some training with us, and so that's been exciting for me, and I get energized by that as well. So I'm getting energized by this conversation. So it's all good.
I was going to ask, Matt, you said earlier that you're a teacher, so you're in the school environment as well. How did you transfer it into the school environment? What difference did it make there?
It's great. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, solution focus transfers into every area of my life, and I've heard it over and over with other people that it is. So it's everything. It's kind of the idea of a child. So I'm only teaching part-time, by the way, so it's not, so people don't think, where do you live, how do you have a life? So I'm teaching 2 days a week at the moment, here. And I mean, a child might come up to me in the playground, a little 7-year-old, he hit me or something, or that boy over there, can you go and tell him off? And I said, what do you hope to gain from me telling him off? Oh, that he won't hit me again. And what difference will it make if he doesn't hit you again? Well, I'll feel safe. Okay, right. So safety is really important. And if you're feeling safe, what sort of things would I notice about you that would tell me you felt safe? Well, I'd be doing this and I'd be playing these, and they just come up with, and it's lovely to have these conversations with these little kids, I suppose, and they're excited about that. So those are little things. I remember last year a couple of things, but one of the children, he was 11-year-old. I was teaching in that class, and he said, "Oh, I'm dumb," and instead of arguing with him, I said, "Oh, what would you want to be instead?" Well, it just changed it all around, just with that one little question, you see. What would you rather be? And he's, I want to be able to do my work. And so if you were able to do your work, what do I notice about you? And he was, a difficult child, I suppose, in the normal case of teachers, which I choose to ignore those kind of things. And what would I notice about you? And he said, I'd probably be sitting at my desk, and what else? I'd have my pencil and I'd be doing the work. Oh yeah, what else? And he came up with a list of, I said, keep putting a number on it. One more thing, go on. And then at the end of that block of teaching in the morning, and I was swapping with another teacher in the afternoon, I said, I've been really pleased. You said you'd be doing this, this, and this, and this, and this, and you've done that, and that. It's really impressive. And he said, can you tell the other teacher? And I said, how about we do a little test that you just keep doing those things and see if he notices. And it was just a really cool thing, because then I saw him the next day and I said, did he notice? Yeah, he did. So it just became, I just love the idea that the client or the person that I'm working with comes up with this stuff, and rather than me saying, if I saw you sitting at your desk with your pencil in your hand and doing this and doing that, that would be really good. But if they come up with it, it's more likely to be more cemented and more real. Yeah. So I just love that. I was thinking of another girl just last year. I mean, you always think of recent stories, I suppose. We were walking up one of these hills in a scenic reserve. It was a school camp scenario, and this girl was complaining, I can't do this. This is horrible. I don't want to do it. And I said, let's just try and do one more step. Let's get one more. Every step is one more closer to the top of this walk. And I don't want to do it. And okay, we'll do this. And then she got, and it was literally 20 steps from the pinnacle, from the top, where you get this big view looking over one of these glaciers in New Zealand, and a lake down the bottom, and it's just very scenic. And I said, honestly, do you want me to carry you up? She was a 12-year-old girl, so probably not appropriate, but and she, no, I'm not doing it. I said, it's only 12 steps. Come on, just one step, and it'll be 19 steps, and just one more step and it'll be 18. Let's do one. No, I'm not doing it. I'm sick of this. I didn't want to do it in the start. And I was just like, wow. And I sat down. I suppose you got to the top, and what would you be pleased about yourself that you actually got to the top? No, kid, I don't want to do it. And she was really dug her feet in. She was really, really, I'll use the word stubborn, I suppose. And I spent about 5 minutes using all my skills, and I felt a bit of a failure, actually. And I went up to the top and said to the other teacher, look, she's not coming. She doesn't want to do it. And the other teacher said, you're kidding me. Well, I'll show you how to do it. And I was like, oh no, here we go. I'm going to be showed up. Here I am, the trained counsellor, and I couldn't do anything. And she's going to go down there and lecture, and she's going to get her up. Anyway, a couple of minutes later, that teacher came back and said, oh, well, she can stay there. I wasn't such a failure. And anyway, so we had lunch and we're packing up, and we're heading down this mountain again. And I walked past the girl and said, hey, do you want to walk down with me now? No. So, okay, fine. Left her, carried on going. I got about halfway, and I stopped on the corner of one of these things, and I started taking photos of the kids walking past on my phone. And she walked past looking really grumpy. And I got a photo of that. And then I was thinking to myself, actually, how can I put my solution focused hat on. I said, how can I see this as a really good thing? That the qualities, what's her superhero? What's her quality that's in her that I can compliment and praise? And I was thinking, actually, she's really stubborn, like far out. Imagine if she was in charge of getting rid of plastic in the world, cleaning the oceans of plastic. And she put that stubbornness into a real good action context. That'd be amazing. So I walked up beside her and I said, you know what? I was just amazed of how stubborn you were. Like that was literally 20 steps to the top and you'd walked, 1,000 steps to get where you were. That was amazing. And if we could have you in charge of our recycling at school to get rid of all the rubbish and plastic, and you had that same stubbornness that you had just then, that would be amazing. And you'd see her sort of look up like this, and, yeah. And then she said, I'll tell you what, I screamed for 3 hours with my dad, and my dad had to call the police because I was so angry and losing it. And I just did it for 3 hours. I didn't give up. And she was like telling me the story like it was a really good thing. And I said, and imagine if you had that stubbornness to get rid of plastic or something, do something really good in this world. She goes, yeah. And then she just lightened up, her shoulders went back, and she just walked down the rest of the hill chatting nicely with me. So that's the sort of thing I just love, that sort of bringing solution focus into the school environment as well. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Go, David.
Yeah, well, Matt, I was going to ask you, I've just moved from adult mental health services to young people mental health service, and feel like I'm floundering a bit because I've never worked with young people before. But you're working across the lifespan. You're working with older people in grief and loss, and you're working all the way down to Litlands at school. Do you find your approach the same, or is your approach different, or do you find that some things work better with adults and some things with kids, or do you think it's all the same?
Ooh, I have to think. I like, what do you call it? What's that thing when you make up stuff? Improvisation. I do my best work when I'm improvising, I think, making it up on the spot. I do think like scaling is really good with kids, more so. I use that a lot more. And that's where it's just something concrete. I'm just thinking again, scaling can trip you up too sometimes. And an example of that, an example I use in my workshops as well, which is cool, in terms of being in a situation where I said, so in terms of your grief, I was asking a teenage boy, 15-year-old boy, a couple of years ago, in terms of your grief, where would you rate? Where you're coping 10 out of 10 and 1 is the opposite. So I'm a 1 to 10 scale person, by the way, not a 0 to 10. Don't ask me why. And he said -400. And so you've got to just put on that hat of just because in terms of scaling, numbers don't really matter. It's about what the client wants. It's not an assessment. And so I said, wow, -400. Why did you give it -400, not -1,000? Was my answer. And then he answered, well, I suppose I'm here and I'm doing this. I don't always cry when I think of my granddad. Those kind of things he said. And it became he listed several things that he was doing that made it a -400, not -1,000, which to me sounded like a 5 or 6 if I was ranking it, sort of thing. Anyway, and then the follow-up question was, so let's suppose after today you walk out that door and somehow you are a -399. What would you notice? So scaling again, and I think when you're asking a scaling question, you ask what's 1 step higher or half a point higher. I think they actually describe 10 out of 10, no matter who it is. Usually, it's kind of this what it would be like if it was perfect. So -4, -399 was like, and he said, oh, well, I'd probably initiate some conversation with my friends. I'd he just listed a few things like that, and it's just like really encouraging to just see that it was a concrete sort of thing that he could use and use it. So I use scaling a lot with teenagers anyway. So, but even then, I'm thinking with even the 7-year-old, a boy went straight up. Good story. Straight after I'd done that Michael Durant, no, it was the Elliot Connie one. I came home and I said, right, I'm not going to do my CBT anymore. I'm going to do solution focus. I'm just going to do it all. I'm going to do a whole session. And I had a session with a 7-year-old boy, and his mother was there as well. And he was missing. The situation was it was a split family, and he was missing his step sister who had moved away to about 4 hours drive away into another town, and he was really missing her and the separation and the loss that was there. And so I said, so if we had a good conversation, what would you hope to get out of it? What are your best hopes from this? And he said, I think he said something like, I'd be happy. It was quite bland, I suppose, was the happy. And I said, so can you think over the last few days, last few weeks or something when you were happy before? No, never. I've never been happy. Okay. So can I think, can I get to know you then? What do you enjoy? What do you enjoy doing? So he said, I like playing with my Lego. I said, so if you were playing with your Lego and you're actually enjoying that, what would I notice about you? And he said, I'd probably be happy. And I'd be there. So you'd be like that. So let's imagine tomorrow for a minute that you are happy, like that happiness that you had when you were playing with your Lego. So going back to the resource sort of scenario, what would you notice about yourself? The very first thing when you open your eyes, what would you notice? And he just gave this description, and then he started talking about how he'd make his breakfast and he'd have a good breakfast, and then he'd go off to school, and when he was off to school he'd see his friend and he'd say, hello, Mrs. to his teacher, and I was like, wow, do you normally do that? No, I don't. But on this day when you're really happy, you'd be doing that, would you? And it just became it was a textbook scenario. I wish I'd videoed it, because it's like, that hooked me into saying solution focus is the way to go. Boop, boop. It's pretty cool. So at the end of the day, asking, I think one of the things that I'm questioning at the moment, and I haven't had a really good answer, is that idea that, that I would be happy, because I know there's some solution focused practitioners, counselors that don't settle for that. They want something more specific than happy. I know Chris Iverson's like, happy's fine. Let's go with that. Whereas, I can't think of some, there is, it don't have to name anyway. The idea that you're your best version of yourself as well. That idea that, you wake up tomorrow and somehow something happens and it's just the best version of you. And I'm wondering what the difference is. This is my question. The difference between waking up tomorrow and there's the best version of you, and waking up tomorrow and your best hopes become a reality. I feel like it's the same kind of question, but it's using their words probably more so than saying you're the best version of yourself. Maybe that's the difference. And
I think like what you've been describing is, because often I would go with, so if you were happier as a family tomorrow, what would you first notice about each other? Because then you build in within that detailed description the differences it's going to make, rather than ask what difference would it make if you were happy, because that seems like an obvious question. But when I think, do you know what, I don't even know what it is, Matt. Sometimes you just get a feeling from clients and you think, I'll just go with this. I don't know what it is. Sometimes a weird question comes into your head and you just go with it, and it seems to work really well. What I'm loving about what you're saying is when you get this impossible hope, and it's impossible, but when you drill it down to what difference, what else, then you can hang on to something. Because eventually they may say, like you've said, well, I'd be I'd be coping better, or I'd be a little bit happier. So then if you're a little bit happier, and that makes perfect sense. That makes, because that's a question we often get asked in the training that we do. And it sounds like you love doing the training as well. That seems to bring a lot of, what sort of, have you ever been stumped by any of the delegates where you thought, oh shit, I don't know what to say yet?
Yeah. I think my most recent one was I had a client, and it was an online scenario, and I had this, and it was I'd say it was a textbook session. What would you notice tomorrow? And I'd be out and just this lady, just I'd be greeting my neighbors, and I'd be saying all these things, and it was kind of like a week. We scheduled a session for 2 weeks' time, and after a week, she emailed me and said, "I don't think I need another session. I want to know how." It was nice having that session with you about what it would look like if my problems had gone away or if things were better. But how do I get there? Was her question. And I was like, So I emailed back and said, well, you said this, and you said this, and you said this, and you said you'd be doing this. Those are really good things. I couldn't have come up with anything better really myself. And if I gave you the how-to in terms of instruction, it might not fit. I'm not sure how I could do that better. And she wrote back and said, okay, yeah, I can see, yeah, but how do I get that? Was her next email. And I was like, so I did a bullet point email back and said, bullet point, you said you'd walk the dog. You said you'd get up at this time, and you said you'd greet your neighbors. You said you'd initiate conversation with your workmates when you went to work. And you said, and I just bullet pointed, boom, 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 boom. And I said, those are really good things to do if it's a to-do list that you wanted. And she said, I guess I need another counsellor. So I felt like a failure, and I haven't got that. I think I suppose I remember one of the podcasts on Alfie and Dominic's solutions, on tour, SF on tour podcast, and one of the speakers said that I think 23% of clients solution focused, they need to have the problem talked about, and they need more than that. So 77%, it's fine, but 23% need something else or something extra or something, or they need to be able to talk about the problem more or something. So I put that in that category for now, and it helps me move on. I'll keep asking the question. So stumped. I think that's just, I think the thing that probably most people think is, how am I going to do this and leave my narrative or my CBT behind or whatever? And how do I just stop doing that? I remember the story Elliot Connie he tells often, actually. So sorry, Elliot, if I'm plagiarizing, but he said he went into his first client and he used his scaling question. He did the miracle question and he did some resource talk and everything. And he goes, wow, this is going really well. And he looked at his watch and it was 7 minutes. And so he went back to CBT. And then he talked to his supervisor about that, and the supervisor said, well, next time try and get to 10 minutes, and then next time 15 minutes, or So I think
I think David's got a question. Might have.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I do. Matt, you've got a background in pastoral care and youth work and things as well. I don't know if you're still doing that work there now, but I'm curious to know about how solution-focused approach aligns with either with Christian philosophy or biblical teaching, or and maybe specifically about Christian. But I know that solution-focused approach is used a lot in faith-based communities of all denominations now. So I'm just curious on your thoughts. I've been reading this book. I'm pulling out all my books today. Solution-focused pastoral counselling.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious about your experience about that, how well it's received and what works with a solution-focused approach from a Christian perspective.
Absolutely. I love that question because certainly it's a passion again in terms of my Christian faith. I love how solution focused. That's probably the thing that with all my training that I did when I did CBT training, I wanted to see how it aligned with the Bible. And then when solution focus came along, I went, whoa, this is even closer. This is even better. So in terms of things like putting off the old, putting on the new, taking thoughts captive. The thing that I've latched onto, a very familiar prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to pray. He said, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I just thought, wow, if we could have that perfect for the person tomorrow, or getting a step closer to that better life, that better outcome. There's verses like talk about straining forward for the goal, forgetting what's behind you and looking ahead, and there's lots of things. So that's in my dream, looking back in 5 years' time, there's one of those solution focused course questions, practice tasks says something like, so let's imagine in a year's time you've just sat down and your first draft of your book, and I'd love to write a book on why Christians use solution focused, which is presuppositional. It's almost like, why should Christians use a solution focused approach? In terms of that, I think the idea of John Hendon talks about not surviving but thriving. I think that comes across in the Christian message of abundant hope, having not just a small but more than you can even imagine sort of verses that talk about living in a life of love, and that you can't even imagine, more than you can measure, or and those sorts of things. Jesus, I could go on about this for ages. I think Jesus talked about how the thief comes to steal and to rob, but I've come to give you life that you may have it in abundance. And it's those kind of things that resonate with me in terms of my faith. Yeah. So in terms of asking the question, do I still practice, do I do that with youth work and things? And yes, I do. So I've done several talks for youth camps and talks of for youth workers and things like that as well. So seeing that, what I like, probably the thing that I get from solution focus and doing the training, because this is probably an important part of why I love it, is what I teach in, say, a 2-day or even a 1-day training course. I feel like if it's the right sort of person, it surpasses a 3-year degree kind of thing. That's I've had people tell me that. So I did just recently, a month ago, did a presentation to counsellors, registered counsellors in Timaru. It was a 90-minute workshop just for guidance counsellors and counsellors that are working in Timaru. And this lady came up to me after that and said, look, I've just completed my master's in narrative therapy, and I actually feel like I want more of this. And it was 90 minutes. And so she came to another workshop about 3 weeks ago that I did in locally, and she's just enthusiastic, can't get enough of solution focused, and is just signing up to all these different webinars and things. So it's just it's simple to teach. Again, one of those podcasts of Dominic and Alfie's, the person I can't remember who they are, but they said something like they can teach solution focused approach in 20 minutes to managers was the thing. And I can remember hearing that and thinking, wow, actually yeah, you can. But it's the mindset that they get after 20 minutes. It's like it's a tweaking of the mind, saying, actually, if I ask questions that promote hope, that promote well-being, that promote that can't be answered in a negative way, sort of questions, those are the sorts of things that are like, yeah, I get this. And then you spend whatever lifetime, and all these authors and doctors and superior counselors to me spend a lifetime refining and developing and just practicing, and that's what I believe of those practice tasks that I've got on my website is you just keep practicing, just even for 5 minutes a week or 5 minutes a day or whatever it is that you get enough. You can't get enough of it to just keep practicing those skills. So, yes.
Did you have a follow-up, David?
Well, I was wondering how the solution-focused approach is accepted in the, in a Christian community.
All right.
Because I know, in speaking from a mental health community, where I come from, sometimes it's accepted, sometimes it's not. I wondered how well that approach gets accepted, because in a traditional sense, someone would go to their pastor or to their counselor or something, and they're going to go with their problem, and they want someone to fix their problem for them.
Yeah.
And I expect that the pastoral care field is no different to that. So how well does this approach go when you turn it around?
Yep, that's really good, and it's probably one of my hobby horses, David, is because I think when you say one of the tenets of solution focus is that the client is the expert, and what I am concerned about, and I have been even before I did solution focus, is that sometimes when people go to a pastor for counsel, that they don't get treated as the expert, or they don't get treated as, actually, I have faith and I read my Bible, but you're treating me like I don't have anything, and you're just telling me what to do, sort of stuff. And so I one of my passions is to teach pastors, and I think a one-day course, because they are genuinely people who care and love and want the best for the people that they're overseeing. That if they had that mindset change, that actually this person in front of me could come up with some good suggestions that could be helpful, that'd be phenomenal. That'd be really good. So I haven't met a Christian who doesn't like it. And like you say, when I'm in circles with meeting lots of Christians, or no, so let's go the other way around, meeting solution focused people all around the world, there's a whole lot of Christians doing it. And the last SF24 actually was that blew my mind. When you sign in, and these people from Singapore and China, and there was one from Turkey over there, and America, everywhere, all around the world, coming in and to watch this thing about grief and loss that I was doing. And I made connections with a guy who was in Singapore, who was a Bible college lecturer teaching solution focused in the Bible college. And so that's a good thing. So I have to get that book off you again, see what it is again. David, what is it? I'm interested in the one you held up before. Solution focus, and I think I've got that actually. Yeah. SF and pastoral. Yeah, I think I have. I downloaded that one, pastoral care. I'm interested in all the how that fits with and I think solution focus aligns really, really well with what the Bible says about people made in God's image. So we have creativity, we have free will, we have value, we and those sorts of things as well. So and like I said, that prayer, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, like, wow, that sounds very solution focused to me. Imagine if we could have this paradise on earth.
So what can people expect when they visit your site, Matt? What wonderful things do they have in store? We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I don't think I need to be able to do some international stuff. That'd be lovely. Yeah. So was that question about the hobbits? Yeah, I was told to say, we've got New Zealand's got Jacinda, and we've got the Lord of the Rings. It's pretty cool. So Discover Solutions.nz is the website. Oh, you've got it down the bottom. Yoo-hoo. I like the idea that we discover solutions as well, and as a plural, it's not just a solution. There was a debate whether it could be solutions focused or solution focused. I don't know, because we come up with lots of solutions. So discover solutions, and just the free stuff there, I suppose, is just that's the practice task. That's there's a course in itself just by downloading those resources and using them and sharing them, and seeing lots more solution focus. I remember a workshop. I preempted at the beginning of the day. I said, look, I've got a big apology to make actually as we start this. This is the first one I ever did here in Timaru. And you could see there was about 22 people in this workshop. And you could see them go, oh, what's he going to do? I've got an apology to make. And I said, I think after today, you're never going to have a normal conversation ever again. And I'm sorry. But it's a good thing. And so, and I can remember we started doing some of these things. I said, you're not going to do this. And in the afternoon, we're standing up doing a practice task in small groups. And I heard this person say, I can't ask about the problem. I'm changed forever. And I was like, yes, it's a win. So yeah, it's just making that mindset change, I think is the key. One of my favorite tasks is to do the question, how are you? And I ask, because so many people just say, how are you? And you say, good, thanks, or, good day. Or most people that actually, my kind of informal research is people often answer that question in a negative way. Oh, I'm a bit tired, or oh, pretty busy, or I'm sick today, or something. They say something negative, unless it's the standard good thanks. So I wanted to refine that and say, so I asked, is that a solution focused question, and what are some questions we could come up instead of how are you? And so my favorite question is, what's been the best part of your day? And now that's a question that you can't answer negatively. What's been the best part? If they say nothing, then I'll say, so what stopped it from getting worse, or whatever, and then they're still calling on resources. I'm not looking at the deficit. Or if they say, what are you looking forward to? And they'll say, you can't answer that negatively. What are you looking forward to? One of the teachers at my school, she asked the question. She says she started asking. I did a workshop at my school as well, and so she just started asking the kids, so what's good? Just a simple question, can't be answered negatively. It's just promoting positivity. There's a Have you seen the video Validation? It's a short movie on YouTube, and it's must have a billion views. It's 16 minutes, but if you watch the first 3 minutes, this movie called Validation, look it up. Validation. It's probably one of the top searches that comes up on YouTube, and it's just this guy he's a well-known actor, and he's just trying to make everyone smile. That's his goal, and it's outstanding. If we had a society of people that just asked questions that made people smile, that validated people, we'd have a different society all around. So it's just amazing.
Wow. What's your hope for the immediate future, Matt? What are you? Because you mentioned something about a book earlier. Is that something you're hoping to get underway?
I'd love. No, that's not really on my task at the moment. My immediate future. I want to do more with education, more workshops. That's my passion, and just putting in practice what it is. I think one day workshops. I've got another one planned in October up in Wellington actually. So I'm going up there because I'm a tennis referee as well. So I'm going up for a tennis tournament. So I went up 2 days earlier so that I could do a workshop there as well. So, that'll be fun. So that's my next solution focused task anyway.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Cool.
I think, unless David, do you have a closing question or observation?
No, I don't have a closing question. I'll just say thank you for the invitation. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and you gave me a call.
You're amazing, David.
And it's been great chatting to the two of you, and look forward to the FBS 100th episode coming up soon.
Yes,
very much looking forward to that. And Tara, Naomi, and Emma. So looking forward to turning the tables.
Brilliant. Well, Matt, it's been a real pleasure. Your enthusiasm is boundless, it seems. You're like one of those Energizer bunnies, which is great. Yeah, so it's no, that's fantastic. It's been really, really inspiring. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. And again, David, thank you again for being on call. You've been brilliant. Tonight we have another chat with Ursula Bullman at 7 p.m. I don't know who my co-host is for that, but I'm looking forward to that. Guys, thank you so much. I shall normally ask you to stay behind. Is that right? Oh, I got something right. Stay behind so we can say goodbye to you personally. But to everyone else, thank you for joining us, and thank you guys. It's been brilliant. Thank you.